What's up guys, Frank here from The Gear Couch, back with the video that I promised that I would do in that last video I posted a few days ago. And it has been brought to my attention that a few people thought that I came across a bit depressive or had like a sort of depressive facial expression on me. I wanted to address that. So I think I felt a little bit melancholic when I was recording that video because I was sort of trying to be honest about what my situation was in the past 1.5 years and why I wasn't active at all on YouTube and on this channel specifically. So yeah, that might have had an effect. Talking about these things might have had an effect on, how I looked in that video. But looking forward, it's only going to be, for the most part, positivity and good vibes on this channel. And now let's move on to the main topic. As promised, I'm going to do a little bit of a NAMM recap and maybe a little remark on the NAMM Show overall, because I felt attending the NAMM Show it felt very different in comparison to how NAMM was a couple of years ago. So I don't think I have to explain NAMM Show to people watching this video because most people know it's a trade show. It takes place in January. It takes place in Anaheim, California, and the whole MI industry meets there. But a few years back, it was strictly MI industry professionals. So you would see retailers, distributors, you would probably see a lot of artists as well, and brands, of course. But I think NAMM decided at some point that pretty much everybody could have or could somehow get a NAMM membership. So you pay an annual fee and then you're automatically a NAMM member. And this way you can get yourself a badge. And that's a little bit how it felt this time. It was extremely crowded. I felt like there were a lot of people who had actually no business there, when it comes to the business side of things. They were having a good time and there were food trucks everywhere and you could buy artisanal beer and whatnot. So it sort of has a festival character, but that makes it harder to have like a proper conversation. So that's why, and you've seen that in other videos probably, a few companies decided to move into the upper area, on the second floor, to have a proper place to meet and talk. So, and apparently a few people were thrown off by that, but to be honest, if you want to have a proper, a business conversation, you can't do that on the show floor. It's just too noisy. Hell, if I wouldn't have my molded, like, sort of ear protections, I would have gone mad in this place. It was really loud and it was really crowded. But let's talk about some of the stuff that was released around NAMM. And I think I would like to start with the elephants. Let's start with the elephants in the room. So the products that everybody was talking about. And the first one I would like to talk about, and you're going to exactly know why I'm saying elephants, is this. So a lot has been sort of talked and commented about the Ibanez Alpha series for a couple of reasons. So we know that Tosin Abasi had a relationship with Ibanez up until a few years ago before he decided to, do his own thing and, start his own company. And I feel like a lot of people were commenting on when the news broke out that, this is going to be one of the releases for 2026. A lot of people came around like, oh, okay, they finally, released the model that was supposed to be Tosin Abasi's. I think it looks somewhat similar, but it also looks like very different. So they tried to make it like their own thing. And also, what I find very interesting, a lot of people were commenting on how allegedly that whole thing was going down between Tosin and Ibanez. And, I know someone who worked at Ibanez at that time and who told me how it went down. And I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm not going to tell you what he told me, but it's the stories that I read online, people commenting, have nothing to do with what actually went down. So it's very interesting, but also there are like similarities. When Tosin started to work with Frank Falbo and that didn't work out, people gave Falbo a lot of shit and blamed him, and all of that could be resolved and, he was able to clear his name. And yeah, the internet is a wild place. However, I think the one thing we can agree on is that this series, the Alpha series from Ibanez, is probably not a high volume business for them. I think they are going to produce a couple of hundred, maybe even less. We don't know. But even when talking to, some of the guys at the Ibanez booth, they were like, we don't think this is going to be a high volume guitar because it's a very specific shape and catered to a very specific audience, which is like the technical player, the gent prog rock guy, the shredder that likes that sort of stuff, that likes the super ergonomic sort of shapes and these futuristic lines. Like average Joe is not going to take a second look at this. Now the other elephant in the room is definitely, and you're probably going to know what I'm talking about as well. It is of course the Quad Cortex Mini. And I don't think it's a huge elephant in the room, because Neunaber was like announcing that something would come, but I think people were expecting something different. And I think here's where, people's expectations are sort of wild sometimes, because we've had the Quad Cortex for some time now, and some people sort of anticipated, they're going to do like a smaller version, but it's going to have like the same sort of live access. And what they did was they did something for people that play a lot at home, and they don't need a lot of like sort of live interaction with lots of buttons, and B, something that is more accessible. But then people were complaining about the price point. So in Europe, it's this thing's going to be $12.99, and the Quad Cortex, like last time I checked, was sitting around like 1,600. So people thought it was not enough of a gap to justify. But then again, you'll get the same processing power as the big brother. You'll get the same size screen. You'll get even the same periphery, in terms of like connections. And for a better price, we have to remember that the Quad Cortex, the big one, used to be something like $16.99, $17.50, and the price only came down because there were so many retailers competing. I think that price is like slowly going to go up again because we have this now. My personal impression was that, I feel that this has sort of sparked my interest in the neural ecosystem, because for me that stuff, that size and that form factor is perfect. I play at home for the most part, and playing gigs, these few buttons would certainly be enough. However, I took one image at the let me just see if I can find it. I took one image at the NAMM Show, and it was quite kind of funny, because people were sort of at the booth and you saw these tiny things, in front of them. And it was funny because they had it had sort of this thing where you sit in front of, like a gaming console. So it looked kind of funny. Here you go. That was the image I was talking about. So yeah, people from a distance, it looked quite funny that people were standing in front of this, and it looked like, I don't know what these small Nintendo consoles are called, but yeah. Definitely a good one. What else? Let's look at some of the other things. Oh yeah, first time that I went to see the guys at Sire. Sire, the same company that also makes the Marcus Miller basses, and they had a few releases. They're doing for the most part, recreations of certain shapes that we already know. The single cuts, they were looking pretty good. Then they have these super strats and a couple of nice finishes, like the swirl finishes. Then the one with the F-folds, we know what sort of shape that is. Seems like every company has a shape that is somehow, remembering you about the company. I'm not going to say we're going to talk about that company a little bit. And then the other thing that I found remarkable is the two models here to the lower left. those are new sort of entry-level models, and they are projected to be 300 US or 300 euros, which would be a great price point. The quality on these things is amazing. And then what they also had, because again, it's the same company, they also had, oh, no, I don't have the image. They also had some new Marcus Miller basses with some really exotic tops and a couple of like sort of advanced features, which I found to be like really interesting. And yeah, spoiler, I just changed to that other picture. One thing I was really looking forward to, if it would actually happen, was that Chris Buck, a guitar player that I absolutely admire, not only for his playing, but also because he's a really, really humble and like down-to-earth guy. He's getting his first signature model, which is obviously a recreation of the guitar that Yamaha made for him. And the one that he played on tour was the Japanese one with, I think it has a nitro finish, if I'm not mistaken. It definitely looks quite banged up and, you know, has some signs of use that you would normally see on a nitro finish guitar. This one, obviously, because it has to be more affordable, has a poly finish. But I think with the pickups, they were very, very true to, you know, the detail that his Japanese version has. I'm super happy to see that he, you know, he has done so much to sort of represent the Revstar series from Yamaha, and he's been out on tour so much and has done so much to promote the brand that I think he definitely deserves to have his signature model. And from a player's perspective, 100%, he's just an amazing player. I absolutely love his playing. Another elephant, and that one is actually a funny one. So elephant number 3, that would be. So that one was funny. That one broke a little bit earlier than NAMM. I think like 2 days before or something that they announced it. So PRS is releasing a 1,000 piece limited edition of an Ed Sheeran signature model. And the fun thing about this is, I mean, you know, the artworks, you can like it or hate it. So it's certainly a question of taste. But the fun fact about this instrument is definitely that it's a baritone semi-hollow that has an acoustic, like an LR Baggs acoustic piezo pickup in it. So one of the sort of weirdest combinations you can have. And then the first thing I was asking myself, maybe a bit more profane, it's like, when does he ever play something like that? But yeah. Whoever, you know, at PRS like pushed this project forward, hat tip to you, sir, because you definitely made it happen for a lot of people to talk about PRS and that new release. So yeah, kudos to you. PRS also released a limited edition Silver Sky out of the US Core line. So not an SE model, unfortunately. And it comes in the color Wild Blue, which was sort of interesting that it also has a matching headstock, and that makes it really appealing. All the other Silver Skies, I was like, yeah, they're nice. They had some nice colors, but the one with the matching headstock, that's also limited apparently to, I'm not sure, maybe not 1,000, less, maybe less. I thought that was really good. Obviously, it's not as affordable as an SE Silver Sky, but nonetheless, definitely a cool move. One of the other things that I found to be very interesting, while we're always talking about, or like a lot of people are always criticizing when a company starts to like release a certain anniversary or some sort of other model around a musician has passed away. You know, we've seen like countless sort of Jimi Hendrix this, Jimi Hendrix that. Lots of people, complaining was making money of a dead guy. And apparently Aria Pro 2 are doing the same thing. And they're doing it with a very specific person. So they're releasing the Cliff Burton signature bass. Says it's the second of the right, so the black one, the black one. And yeah, it's sort of I think it's an anniversary model because of the 40th anniversary of. Let me think. The day that he passed away, that died in the accident. But I'm like, I think it's cool. Doesn't make sense to make off money of Cliff Burton. I'm not sure. And also, you can do whatever you want. You can buy this bass. You're never going to sound like Cliff Burton, because nobody will ever sound like Cliff Burton. Anyways, one of my favorite releases of NAMM, because it was very surprising, and not only surprising, but also because it almost came out of nowhere, and it was released pretty much on the first day of NAMM, and it was the JBL Bandbox. So if you haven't heard about that, so it's like a tiny little amplifier, extremely portable, battery powered, that you can connect with your phone if you want to. If you want like more options to edit sounds and whatnot. But the other thing that it does, you can connect it with your phone and have some sort of track running, and then it applies a really, really good way to separate stems. At this point, it has three tracks, so you can take out the guitars entirely, you can take out the vocals entirely, and the drums. And it was, I saw a couple of videos where it was demonstrated, and it's really accurate. It is really accurate. It takes a little bit time to process, but then, you don't hear sort of like artifacts with the other tracks. So it's really accurate. It sounds great. It's extremely loud for such a small thing. And they have two different ones. They have the Bandbox Solo, and they have the Bandbox Trio, where it's like almost a little like tiny PA system. And I had the chance to talk with the guy who drove that project at JBL, and it was amazing how much they spent like almost 2 years working on this until they came to the point. Was like, okay, now this is something we can release. So yeah, they have the Bandbox Solo. They here you can see an image of the application and the three like sort of faders where you can pull down the different instruments. And that is the Trio. So this thing is really loud and almost serves like a little PA system. Amazing, really amazing. And also the guitar sounds, they're great. So they also put a lot of time into making the guitar sounds fun and as accurate as possible. So that one was that was something that I didn't expect, and it was great to talk to Richard, the guy at JBL who drove the project. That one, probably one of my favorite releases of this year's NAMM Show. And while we were talking about Abasi, just a little bit, so he has his own company, which is Abasi Concepts. He recently, or like a year ago or two, he did a collaboration with Ernie Ball, and that resulted in the Kaizen. And now he came out at NAMM with another collaboration, and in this case, he's doing a collaboration with Cordoba. Cordoba, usually known for their classical guitars, they made a sort of signature model in three different sort of finishes: Silicote, Acacia, and White Burst. And essentially, it's a 7-string classical guitar, extremely thin, and with a fan fretboard. So like all the sort of characteristics that you would connect with those in Abasi. And I was wondering about the price point, actually. No, nothing about the price. Oh yeah, there you go. There it goes. 1,300 euros. It's not terrible, but also it's again, a very, very specific guitar catered to a very specific audience. I don't think they're going to see like high numbers or high volume on this. It's going to be relatively small, in my opinion. What else? Yeah, we talked about the quad Cortex. Oh yeah, this was just, I mean, it's not a huge deal, but I think it deserves to be mentioned. So the Hot Rod DeVille is becoming 30 years old. And what a lot of people seem to sort of not see, it's one of the most sold tube combos of probably all times. They've sold thousands of these things. And with rental companies that rent gear, you have to go on tour and you can't take your own stuff with you. A lot of these are being rented out. I've seen so many concerts where the band was renting the backline, and the Hot Rod Deluxe was usually the thing that worked for them because it's very reliable. It's very small for a stage. If you need something that has enough volume and headroom, that works. It absolutely works. And you just bring your pedal board and plug into it and you're good to go. And so they come out with a special edition that has like a really nice Tolex and a different sort of a front grille. I wanted to mention that. So we've talked about the Alpha series. Ibanez also had a few other things in the oven. That one's fun because it's quite unusual, to be honest. What else? Let me see. Yeah, so something for the beginners. For the beginners that want to use a Floyd Rose. I don't recommend that at all, at least not to beginners. Then they have like 2 J Customs that I'm not sure what the price point was. It was really high. It was something like 8,000 euros or something. Again, not high volume. And then that one was definitely a showstopper. So, and I've seen a lot of like really nice images from different people on social media. That one, I think if I wanted to buy like an extended range 7-string, I would go for that finish. I really like that finish. It looks killer. Yeah, and some new models here and there, new AZ series, and then they had this one. This one's fun as well. That's a baritone semi-hollow. I had this in my hand, and it's 28-inch scale. So if you wanted to do some jazz gent fusion or something, that would probably your go-to instrument. What else? That one I found to be interesting because I'm not sure if it was entirely made out of maple. I think it's very possible, but certainly a very bright guitar. Then another thing that I had already tested beforehand when it was as shown as a prototype at Guitar Summit, the DSM Humboldt Dumblifier. So DSM and Humboldt have done a few things in the past, like they started with a simplifier. They came out with a version 2 of it, the MK2, and then later they made the Simplifier Deluxe and the Simplifier X. So essentially, you'll get a complete analog signal path, an analog feel, and then it's giving you certain flavors of different classical amps. And they have taken a lot of time, it was a lot of effort to sort of recreate the sound and the feel of a Dumble amp, and they actually went out to Japan to test and measure a Dumble. I think it was the serial number 0002 that's floating around somewhere in Japan. And I've tested this, and I was very impressed by it. I can't tell you if it sounds like the exact same thing. I don't know if it sounds exactly like the serial number 2 Dumble, but it feels great. It feels great, and it sounds great to my ears. And there are a lot of tonal options on this, and you have a great sounding reverb, and you can integrate effects before and in the effects loop. So definitely a really great thing. Also, it looks great. I mean, the wooden side panels, to me, they look great. Absolutely. What else? The next one was actually a pre-NAMM release, so I think they released that a week prior to NAMM, and it was also talked about a lot because of the price point. And it seems like Walrus Audio was slowly moving towards like not super high end, but definitely more in the high end direction. I mean, they have some affordable pedals. They have some pedals that are like sort of mid-range when it comes to pedal pricing, but also now they're moving more towards the high-end market. And the Mantle was one of these examples where you'll get like a bass preamp with like properly transformer driven and a DI, and it was done in I think in collaboration with what's his name, Ian Martin Ellison. If you haven't heard of him, it's the guy from Scott's bass lessons. Great musician, amazing bass player. The price point is sort of like 800 something euros or US, so it's quite high. But then again, it's a it's a high-end product. It was designed for the bass player with like very high expectations in mind, and it comes in a very sort of convenient format. So we'll see. Will they sell lots of volumes? Probably not. But it's the same with the Walrus Audio DFX1, the effects pedal or the effects panel for drummers. It's also not going to be high volumes, but at least it goes into a direction where you think, wow, that company is really going into, breaking into other markets instead of releasing like the 500 pedal that sounds like this or that. I've always found Walrus Audio to be like trying to push the boundaries in comparison to other companies that I could mention. Now, I've taken a couple of photos at NAMM that I would love to show you, and let me see. So yeah, we saw here's a one of the Dumblifier that they had at the booth, so you could test it out. Then I also went to the RedSeven booth, and I was really impressed with their stuff. So it's a company out of Italy. They make great amplifiers, pretty much high end, but they're slowly like breaking down to like lower tier segments in order to like serve a different audience that is not willing to pay like 3,000 to 3,500 euros for a tube head. And they had the Duality D, which takes parts of their Duality amp and puts it into this like lunchbox format with IR loader, like really, really interesting. And I tested it at the booth and it sounded really great. Then they also had this. This is a release they did like a few months ago. They did it together with an Italian guitar player that they're working with for quite some time. Name is Azari, and the head is like that. So essentially like a one-channel amp with like different flavors that you can like dial in beforehand. Sounds amazing. 50 watt gives you more headroom than you'll probably ever need. Oh yeah, then I went by the Reverend booth because Reverend Guitars, they sort of streamlined their product lines for 2026, and it was a long time ago that I actually had the chance to play a Reverend guitar, and I was really surprised. Like the instruments feel great, the necks feel great, the craftsmanship is amazing, and yeah, I sort of want one now. And I'm usually not the guy who's like, oh, I need this, I need that, but that, this or the other Reverend really impressed me. So yeah, not quite sure which one to take, but yeah, I'll find out. Yeah, here's some more shots of the Reverend Guitars. These are like the set necks. And then this was something that I came across that I also found interesting. So Hot Tone, a company that usually does, like multi-effects pedals and whatnot, they are now doing the sort of like boutique-y looking single pedal line. However, it has a little bit of the, Chase Bliss thing going on. Obviously not in terms of optics, but you'll get like secondary functions on each knob, which I found interesting. The name of the brand is Klowra, by the way. And yeah, lots of tonal options. It's mostly modulation and like crazy effects. And then they have like one distortion pedal, which is sort of red based, but you can tweak it to make it sound not like a red if you wanted to. Then they had this dual expression pedal, which I found interesting. And then the thing on the right, in the upper right corner, was actually a very powerful power supply that has some values that read like this could be, especially for the price point, which they couldn't tell me, but they said it's going to be very competitive, could potentially be a real competitor to some established brands. And yeah, looking forward to see that. Another honorable mention, and I'm going to get my hands on those very, very soon as well, are these ones. Those were interesting as well. So this is a company called Gigagain Audio, and apparently one of the guys that's driving the company was sort of partial owner, or like had some ownership with more effects. And I mean, obviously, if you look at like some of the names, they give away what kind of this is based on. The green one is a screamer. There's a really great sort of like clean boost with switchable flavors, like tonal flavors. They have a high gain pedal. They have a Silver Legacy, which is obviously like sort of what's it called? Steel string singer like. The Golden Legacy is like some sort of Marshall-y. Then they have the blue one, the upper blue one here is a blues driver, but then with some tweaks and modulations. And they have a dual delay, like with two independent delays. The thing that I like about those is if you wanted to use a battery with that, there are still people who use batteries or rechargeable batteries for like a compact board. They have these like little compartments that are fixed with a magnet, and they're very, very easy to pull in and out, and you can shut down the entire pedal and not use any sort of battery, even though you're plugged in with a little switch. And speaking of batteries, I don't know if this is a new invention. I'm not sure, but let me show you. They gave me these. They gave me these things. So this is a battery that they're. Come on, can I get it in focus? Yes. So this is a rechargeable battery with the USB-C plug. Socket that you can use and recharge if you wanted to. And I found that really interesting. Again, I'm not sure if this is a new invention, but they had several ones with different voltages. So they had a straight 9 volt, and they had another one that was 8.4. And I found that to be really, really interesting. I've seen other manufacturers do the same, but obviously the price point on those was really attractive. Maybe we'll get into rechargeable batteries. Who knows? That thing was also funny. So I went to the Quilter booth because I'm always interested in like lightweight amps that sound great, and Quilter amps definitely do that. And they have a thing going on with that I didn't know about. So it was Quilter and Neunaber, and they made this sort of preamp straight into the box solution where I found it a bit difficult to handle everything on the unit because it's yeah, it's not very intuitive, to be honest, but it sounded great. So I can definitely account for the sound, but it was quite a bit difficult to wrap my head around it when I was checking it out. Thankfully, there's the editor, so if you wanted to do it through an editor, but I'm looking forward to, in the future, maybe give this a proper go. Obviously, at NAMM, trying things out at NAMM is not the greatest thing. It's not the greatest experience. Yeah, and then the other thing that was probably number 2 on my list of releases for NAMM. So Boutique Amps Distribution, the company that holds a couple of brands such as Friedman, Wampler, what else? Soldano, Tone King. They have been working for a long time on a machine learning algorithm that works with Class D amplifiers. And what it does is you connect it with your cabinet, and then it's going to send a signal and measure the impedance and a couple of other characteristics to then give you the response and the feel of a certain power amp topology, of a certain power amp, and how that reacts with the cabinet. And what they had, so you were able to sort of test it in the form of, they had the Friedman small box head connected with the cap, and then they also had the preamp of that amp going into the pedal head, and then recreated the power section of the small box. And then you could A/B between those two. I couldn't hear or feel a difference. So this thing is very, very accurate. And Friedman has, so the pedal head from Wampler is like stereo, 2 times 60 watts. You can turn it down to 2 times 5 watts, I believe. Has an EQ, has, IR loading capabilities as well. So if you wanted to use that and go directly, like straight to the board, you can do that as well. And load a couple of IRs in there. And yeah, it was also really, really loud. So like 2 times 60 watts is definitely enough to, work in every sort of band context. At the booth, they also had a new Tone King preamp. So the Imperial preamp was definitely a huge success for them. And they have done the Royalist. So essentially, sort of the same thing, but more British, so where the Imperial gave you like the sort of blackface-ish tones, this gives you like the Marshall thing, to put it in very easy words. And I wasn't able to test that, but I'm sure, knowing the guys at Boutique Amps Distribution, it's going to be amazing. I'm not sure why I couldn't find the other thing. So, but Friedman did sort of the same thing. Like, think about the pedal head, and then, think about 2 times 90 watts in a sort of rack format. And that's what Friedman's coming up with. It's called the IR load. If I find an image, I'll put it in here. And that sort of wraps up my NAMM experience. Maybe other than the fact that I feel like Anaheim as a place only exists because of the convention center and Disneyland, and everything is so expensive. I'm happy I didn't have to pay for most of it, because obviously I went there in the function that I have with my new employer. I started a job in September, but it is really expensive. So I wonder how people do it, go to NAMM, stay in a hotel, eat out all the time. Heavy, very heavy. Let me know if you have any questions about these things. Let me know if you went to NAMM. Let me know how you followed NAMM and how you, see and look at the new releases of this year. Would be interesting to find out what your impressions were. And I'm going to see you very soon in a new video. I'm in the process of getting in a couple of things to be able to also play while I'm recording. So to be like really spontaneous. And I'm currently doing a few tests with live streaming so that we can have a proper interaction as well. If you like this and you look forward to that, then please consider subscribing. It doesn't cost you anything. It's completely for free. And hit the bell icon so that when a video like this drops, you'll be notified. Until the next time, see ya!